So we have a question from Makoto, who was actually also a podcast guest. So question to speakers, what are your perspectives on collective Ikigai? In other words, what would be the similarities and differences that you could have compared to personal Ikigai? Collective Ikigai. I'm not sure what that means. Is that in terms that many people would share an Ikigai, or?
I don't believe in a collective Ikigai. Ikigai is always finally in one's own mind. And you can have powers that be say, this should be your Ikigai, but whether you believe it or not. Let's go back to, the kamikaze pilots in World War II who smashed their planes into. They should have been saying, Banzai Tennoheika, hooray for the emperor. But they were probably instead saying, mother, and that's just an example of how you can make people conform, but you can't alter the inside of their minds. So I'm not sure there is a collective Ikigai.
Yeah, I think when I think about the collective Ikigai, I don't know if it's a Ikigai or not, but sport is one example, like a World Cup, for example. Most people probably cheer your own country. So during the World Cup, it's like a sort of nation becomes almost like sort of one, and everybody kind of, wishes strongly that your country wins. It's not so much about Japan because Japan is not a big soccer country. But when I think about Argentina, who won the World Cup, I've had a story of many people saving the life worth money, or maybe they are selling their house to go to the World Cup. Yeah, to just buy the ticket. And so soccer means so much to them. And it's of course the personal Ikigai too. Maybe for them, soccer is the Ikigai, or watching the World Cup, or going to the World Cup to witness their country's winning would be their personal Ikigai. But it's happened in such a kind of collective level that maybe in Argentina, you can kind of say it is a collective Ikigai. Yeah, and that's applied to many other sporting events and so on.
Terrific example. That's exactly, you're exactly right. And nobody is saying you must love your country and you must cheer for Argentina or Brazil or whatever it is. No, nobody says that, but people do anyway. And of course, right. The dangerous downside of that is the World Cup or the Olympics, great. Wartime is also a form of collective Ikigai, where everyone agrees those guys are bad and we're good. Not everybody agrees, most people do. So that's the downside of this. But that does enter the realm of a collective Ikigai, you're probably right. A mass crowd Ikigai.
Yeah, this is interesting, Gordon. This actually reminds me of our conversation. And at the time of our podcast, you were experiencing the Hong Kong protests. That also seemed like a collective short-term, I think we described it as a short-term Ikigai, but at least a collective one. Yeah.
And you're right. And what's happened in Hong Kong, of course, is that many people still believe that, but they don't say it now. So the government may say, love your motherland and so on. Very few young people believe that in the slightest, but simply don't say you don't love your motherland in public. So you can't force that Ikigai on people, except through changing the educational curriculum. Maybe a generation or two you can, but you can't do it very quickly.